A balance sheet. A balance sheet is one of the important financial statements. I think it's the one that we should all be familiar with first because it's useful for many occasions. It's used by all sorts of entities. It's used by companies, which often show the balance sheet to investors to show how healthy their financials are, how good they're doing. It can even be shown to represent personal financial health as well. You can know a lot about a company or a person through a balance sheet. You can know what they owe, what they own, and how much they own. Now, to start this course, I'd like to reintroduce some basic accounting and bookkeeping concepts to you. You may already be familiar with this term, so let's just try. So, asset. Asset is anything that has value. Excuse the band-aid on my hand. There's an actual wound there. Okay, so your house is an asset. Your car is an asset. This whiteboard is also an asset. Anything that has value is an asset. So one could say this whiteboard is an asset of mine because it has value to me. Liability. A liability is anything or how much you owe. Anything that you owe. So something borrowed from your mom, the bank, or from your friend is a liability because if you borrowed it, you must pay it back. And then equity is your assets minus your liabilities, and it's also synonymous with your net worth. So net worth, this is what you most of the times hear from Forbes and the top 10 richest men in the world. So you hear net worth. So what it basically means is when your assets surpass your liabilities by a great deal, you have high net worth or you have high equity. Now, to represent the balance sheet in a much simpler way, you can draw this diagram. So you can put your assets on the right, and then your liabilities and your equity on the left. So notice your liabilities and equity equal the total amount of assets you have. So your assets, to put it into an equation, are your liabilities and then your equity, and then your liabilities are your assets minus your equity. And similarly, you can come up with the final equation, which is your equity is your assets minus your liabilities. And this is what makes a balance sheet that useful. It presents your assets and then as your liabilities plus your equity. And companies use this to present their all of the things they own and all of the things they owe and how much they own. So that's your balance sheet. Now I have an example of a real balance sheet. I got this balance sheet from one of my textbooks here, Financial Management Fundamentals by Brigham. So let me take time to focus the camera first. Okay, so this is your typical balance sheet. Now let's check first your assets, which are on top here. So those are your assets, and then you also see your liabilities and equity. So I'll encircle your all of your liabilities here, and then your equity is at the bottom. So you can notice nga your assets are equal to your liabilities plus your equity. To focus on the assets, you have cash. Now cash is written on top because it is the most liquid of assets. It can be exchanged for anything. Next to that are your accounts receivable. This is the money that you can receive in the short term, and then your inventories. They comprise your total current assets. Your total current assets are the assets that you can turn into cash very quickly, or are cash in the case of cash. Okay, so those are your total current assets. Now your gross fixed assets, and then your less accumulated depreciation are your net fixed assets. If you add those up, you have your total assets. At the bottom, you have your short-term borrowings, and then your accounts payable, and then your accruals or your accrued interest. They make up your total current liabilities, which you add to your long-term debt to come up with your total liabilities. And at the bottom is your equity. Right there, your equity. So I'll stop this video here. I hope you learned a little about the balance sheet, and I hope to see you again in further videos.